Put me in the YouTube video? Alright, I'll put you in the YouTube video. Welcome, YouTube. Today we're gonna be watching another Fat Electrician video. This time is going to be America's most iconic delivery system. Grumman? That sounds like a Warhammer 40k character. Grumman LLV. I have like no background knowledge on this one, but I'm excited to watch it. As always, leave any recommendations down in the comments below. Consider liking, subscribing, coming back to the Twitch stream, but that's enough of a plug. Let's get into it.
Every single time I try to make a funny, lighthearted video, it gets completely unhinged.
That's
Today
a good
we're talking
start.
about Northrop Grumman's most iconic vehicle of all time. Every aviation nerd just sat forward in their chair because if I don't pick their favorite Northrop Grumman plane, they're gonna roast me in the comments section, because if you don't know, Northrop Grumman is a defense contractor primarily known for making warplanes, and they've created some of the most iconic and effective warplanes the world has ever seen. Some of those planes include the F-4F Wildcat, the F-6F Hellcat, America's gun with wings, the A-10 Warthog, the B-21 Stealth Bomber, and its replacement, the B-21 Raider. But all of these...
I did not know that they had upgraded the stealth bomber. Stealth bomber is one of my favorite. If you ever played any of those fictional Ace Combat games or Tom Clancy's Hawks, the missions where you get to use a stealth bomber is some of the best. Some of the best. You're just so stealthy and slick, and you're following through rings, kind of like in Star Fox. It's not realistic at all, but it's super fun. I love it. Also, the Warthog, one of my favorite aircrafts, just because it's so good support for the ground troops. Like, it's just so powerful, and it looks different. It doesn't look like a plane to me. It looks like death with wings, and I love it.
Pale in comparison to Northrop Grumman's most iconic and durable vehicle of all time. A vehicle that was designed to perform its tasks swiftly, despite snow or rain or heat or gloom of night. The LLV, the long life vehicle, aka the mail truck.
What?
You're not serious.
Huh?
You've
What?
gotta be shitting me.
I shot down 3 MiGs on one of those.
Yeah, the same people that made like half the planes in US military history also made your friendly neighborhood mail truck. I can only imagine that the US Postal Service put out a memo like, hey, we're looking for a vehicle to help deliver packages, and the US government was like, oh, package, payload, potato, potato, same thing. Call up Northrop Grumman. They're really good at delivering that type of stuff. Okay, Northrop Grumman's used to putting warheads on foreheads, now they're putting parcels on porches. It's the same thing. Now all I need is for Lockheed Martin to start making action figures, and my life will be complete.
You put munitions, chips, and toys?
Oh my god, I love this film. I can't even remember what the name of it is, but I watched this so much as a child. What's the name of this? Small Soldiers? Oh, that's what it is. Oh my god, I love it. Aren't there like, aren't there some that are like animal type people? Toy Soldiers, that's it. Oh my god. This was such a classic for me as a kid. This was like a more adult version of Toy Story. And I love it. The Gorgonites, that's it, thank you. Oh, fuck, I want to watch this. Furries is the closest thing I can compare it to, but they're made of plastic. Oh, if you haven't watched Toy Soldiers, go and watch it. God, it's a classic.
Okay, all jokes aside, I'm actually legitimately upset that this thing is named the LLV. I mean, it's made by Northrop Grumman, the makers of the F-4F Wildcat and the F-6F Hellcat, and you didn't name this the Mail Cat? Are you fucking kidding me?
Did you forget to do the ad?
No, I did the ad. Thanks for finally being in the
Dog.
video with a
No,
shirt
bring the
on for
dog in.
once.
You're welcome.
Bring the dog in.
Nice thong, Borat. This video is brought to you by Zydax. Custom gaming PCs are all made right here in America with American tech support. They can do any type of customization you want, or they have pre-built ones ready to ship right now. And then we have one of our newest sponsors, Zaka Life Recovery Balm. It's made right here in America, and it's the best thing I've found for aches, pains, and athletic injuries. It blows every other topical treatment I've ever tried out of the water. I'm gonna have both those sponsors and discount codes.
Healthy
linked down
couple
below.
goals,
Let's get back to the
absolutely.
video. So after finding out that the mail truck that I've grown up with my entire life was actually made by Northrop Grumman, I decided, hey, I'm gonna make a video on this. This is gonna be hilarious. It's gonna be lighthearted. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna be great. So I started looking up the specs. I started looking up the history, how this came to be. And then I asked myself one simple question. Wait a minute. Why on earth is a defense contractor making this little tiny car when an automotive contractor probably could have done the same thing better and probably cheaper? And
I want to see if I can predict a reasoning. I can only think that it could be one, they have a lot of parts left over, so they were, say, oh, let's, we could do this and make some extra money off of this using some old parts or something along those, and then they upgraded it. I don't know, that might not make any sense. It could be that maybe they actually, I can't think of a good reason. Why would they? Like, did they need it to withstand bombs, gunfire? Were they worried about the inner city? That's a joke. Did they need it to be able to go on the front lines in case we're ever invaded? It was a secret force for us to put guns on it and then shoot the enemy. And they're like, oh, it's just a mail car. And then boom, a gun pops out of it. And then they shoot the enemies when forever invaded on the U.S. soil. Even though, geographically and politically, it's very unlikely that the United States will ever be invaded, on our own soil anytime soon. It would be very difficult because the United States geographically is prime real estate defensively. Prime real estate. So I don't think we have to worry about that, but maybe it's like a sleeper cell. Maybe it's like that. Welcome to Freedom Tech Support Points.
per usual, to absolutely nobody's surprise, it's because once again, the government ruins everything.
Oh, well.
Yes, we do.
All right, so let's take it from the top. Once upon a time in 1775, the United States Continental Congress says, hey, delivering mail is super duper important because we don't have email and phones and telegraphs yet, and delivering letters is the only way that we can communicate. So we need to establish a post office, and we're going to take one of our smartest founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, and make him the first postmaster general to figure this entire thing out. Then the government pretty much immediately decides, hey, we want this to kind of be a government agency, but also we don't want to have to give it any tax money to be able to run itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a legal monopoly. We're going to go ahead and say that the U.S. Postal Service is the only entity that is legally allowed to deliver the mail. That way, the U.S. Postal Service is going to be guaranteed to get 100% of the business, so they're going to have enough money to be able to fund themselves and not have to rely on taxpayer money. And this is still going on to this day. This is a legally recognized and regulated monopoly. Buh! What about FedEx and UPS? Buh! That's actually...
I was literally about to ask about that. I guess it's not considered mail, but I'm sure there are complaints for and against the legal monopoly of the mail service. I mean, everyone complains about their mail getting there late or getting spam, but I can't really think of a really bad reason for having a legal monopoly on mail. I mean, it's mail. Do you want it to be like having competitors and then having different rates and whatnot? Like kind of like how cell services where everyone has cell companies, they don't have legal monopolies anywhere. They don't have any monopoly, but they have like cartel districts of like, you can only get the service here for internet, or you can only get this service, not like internet providers. That's it. You can only get Spectrum here. You can only get this other one over here. So while it's technically not a monopoly, but you're kind of stuck with whatever. You move, you can't necessarily keep AT&T. You might have to get Spectrum, stuff like, around that. If it's not an envelope, it's not mail. Oh, hey, welcome, Bluey. I can't think of a bad thing for a monopoly of mail, because I think I'd rather it just be handled by one group and it be the government, which is weird for me to say because usually I'm not about that type of stuff, but it makes sense here.
Actually, good question out of you for once. So the monopoly only applies to like letters and mail and shit like that. Packages are technically different and there's allowed to be commercial competition there. That's why UPS and FedEx primarily only deliver packages. Now I say usually because there is an exception that if you have something of vital importance that needs to be like overnighted to somewhere immediately, you are allowed to use FedEx or USPS to ship that if it's of vital importance. And I know what you're thinking, it seems like there's a pretty big gray area there. I mean, who sets the criteria as to whether or not something is important enough to violate the US Postal Service's legal monopoly and be able to use FedEx or UPS to send a letter or an important document? Well, obviously that would be the US Postal Service's in-house federal law enforcement agency, the Postal Inspectors.
Oh,
I'm not shitting you. The mailmen have their own federal law enforcement agency.
Do they have guns? Can they shoot a piece of mail for resisting arrest?
I had no idea.
Huh? The mail force? What? I was joking about the guns. I was joking. What? Why are they chasing someone? Ooh.
Now, typically the postal
The envelope's got a knife. Bang, 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 bang.
inspectors are doing really great things, like making sure that people aren't sending bombs or drugs through the mail, or investigating people that have had their mail stolen, which, if you didn't know, is actually a federal crime. And back in the day in 1775, when the post office and the postal inspectors were founded, Congress levied the death penalty for stealing mail. And while that's all fine and dandy, once in a while the postal inspectors get a wild hair in their ass, and they
you can't just go, oh, you know, the death penalty for mail fraud. You can't just, did they ever do it? Did someone ever get the death penalty for mail fraud? I feel like that's a whole story in and of itself. That's a whole video right there. Of like, oh, the first and only guy to ever get the death penalty for mail fraud. Like, what did he send in the mail? What was he fraudulating? You know, or she, you know, men and women can cause mail fraud. It's not just a male thing. I made a pun.
They decide that they are going to enforce their legalized monopoly. For example, back in 1993, a big company called Equifax was using a private courier to deliver all of their mail, not just their packages. And because of this, the US Postal Inspectors launched an armed raid of their company headquarters, determined that their mail wasn't important enough to be overnighted, and that they were legally required to use the United States Postal Service, and then gave them a $30,000 fine. Yeah,
what?
If you live in America and you run a business and you decide that you don't like using the United States Postal Service and you're going to exclusively try to use like FedEx or UPS or something, there is a greater than 0% chance that armed mailmen in body armor will show up to your headquarters and raid your business, tell you that's illegal, and then give you a fine. Okay, do I want to talk shit right now because that seems absolutely insane and ridiculous? Yeah, a little bit. Am I gonna? Absolutely not, because they know where I live, okay? I didn't know they existed until yesterday, and already Special Forces mailman is on the top of my list of people I'm not gonna fuck with. So everybody kind of already knows that being a mail carrier.
They literally have your address. They literally know where you live. They go to your house daily. Yeah, you don't want to fuck with them. You don't want to fuck with them. You don't want to mess with the person who can put a pipe bomb in your mailbox. No.
A government job, but most people don't understand to the extent that the US Postal Service is its own government entity, so much so that it necessitates its own federal law enforcement agency. So going back to the Grumman mail cat and the actual physical transportation of the mail, it always just kind of went with the times. Back in the 1700s when they were founded, it was delivered on horseback. When cars came out and they became more and more common, the post office began using more and more cars. So the US Postal Service would just acquire whatever cars they needed whenever they needed them, and this went on for decades. But by the 1930s and 1940s, it was becoming a huge issue because the USPS had acquired a ton of different cars. They were all different makes, all different models. They all drove different. They all had different carrying capabilities. They all required different mechanics, different parts. It was a huge logistical nightmare for this enormous fleet of vehicles. As I'm sure you could imagine, it would be like 100 times easier if all of the vehicles in the US postal fleet were the same exact thing and all had the same capability, requiring the same replacement parts, the same type of mechanics, and you could teach all the postal carriers how to drive one vehicle and one vehicle only. So at the end of World War II, with hundreds of thousands of Americans returning home and looking for jobs, the United States Postal Service recognized a very unique opportunity with the Willys Motor Company Jeep. Because the Jeep was being used by the US military, there was already a ton being manufactured, and a lot of the people returning home from the military already knew how to drive it. There was a ton of people qualified to work on them mechanically, and there was a ton of excess parts around. And with the military downsizing, there was a huge surplus of them, so it was a perfect fit in pretty much every way. It is a rare case of the government doing something 100% right, and the United States Postal Service adopted the Jeep as their
That looks awesome. I would so much prefer to see this delivering the mail than seeing the rinky-dink mail cart or mail cat, I'm going to call it that from now on, that delivers the mail right now. This looks great. It looks like it's all crumple zone. It does. It could, you know, it does kind of look like it's all made of crumple. Well, the back part, the front part looks like it could take a beating. But yeah, but hey, being, you know, crumple zone means that it, you know, you're not going to die from G-forces, though. If it's too much crumple zone, you're going to be crumpled yourself. But, you know, it looks pretty good. And also, if you need to get that overnight delivery or day one delivery, this thing can go off-road. It looks like it can take alternate routes. I support this one. It's that side mirror is a little bit weird right there. but I like it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I like the idea of Jeeps. But, you know, it looks good. It looks old-timey, but in a good way. This is just like the War in Heaven? No, this is not just like the War in Heaven. This is a Jeep.
Primary vehicle. And that worked for like 40 years, but as the US got bigger and bigger with more and more people, and people started sending more and more mail and more packages, the capacity that the Jeep could hold simply wasn't enough, and the United States Postal Service wanted something that was capable of carrying more mail. But you have to remember, this is a government agency, and they can't do anything simple when it comes to getting new equipment, so they can't just go over to like Ford or Chevy and be like, hey, build me a new mail truck. No, they have to figure out the exact specifications that they're looking for, and then they have to send it out to all the government contractors so that they can all put a bid in on it. That way the government contractors can come in, do the exact bare minimum, and make a ton of money. I mean, let's just look at the LLV, for example. They wanted this thing to weigh a maximum of 3,000 pounds. Guess how much it weighs? Exactly 3,000 pounds. They wanted it to be able to carry a minimum of 1,000 pounds. Guess how much it can carry? Exactly 1,000 pounds on the dot. They wanted it to be this tall, this wide, this long, and Grumman came along and said, dope, I'm gonna make a metal fucking rectangle exactly that size, throw an engine and some wheels on it, and call it a good day. They literally made a mobile filing cabinet.
But look at this. This doesn't have style. This does not have the personality that the Jeep had. When I see this, I think of boring. It's boring. It's a box. It's got a weird eagle envelope flying through the sky as its emblem there. I don't really understand what that is. I never have. I like the color scheme. It's very recognizable. But I see this and I'm just like, wow. It's very boring to see that on the street. It looks like some jank Soviet-era car design. Yeah, it's very... What is it? Not deterministic. It's very oppressive, I guess you could say. It's function over form. And I get, if I had to pick one, I like function over form. Brutalistic, that's the word. It's very brutalistic in form. It's very brutalistic and very boring. And if I had to pick, I like function over form. But this is the goddamn United States of America. We can have a little bit of style with our function. I don't want everything to just be like, oh, rectangle is best. Rectangle is good. It holds everything. Good rectangle. I hate rectangles. I hate rectangles. I hate concrete. I want some style. I want some curves. I want color. It's got a little bit of color, but I like the more blue of the Jeep. The white, I'm tired of just seeing white, black, and gray cars. Like, give me some reds, give me some greens, give me some blues. Like, it's got the red, white, and blue, so I get why, but I like it if the main color wasn't white. It's just, those are boring. White and black and gray, it's too much on the road. I want some vibrancy. I want to be like I'm on LSD when I'm driving on the road, but not actually on LSD, because then I'd crash. The LLV was a harrowing vehicle to drive. However, he doesn't talk about the FFV in this video, which makes me sad. Aw. They deliver more than just envelopes and boxes. It's just still a package. Okay. You know, that's my rant about the road system, the colors of the roads. I want to see more color.
Cabinet. Which, to be fair, in hindsight, after serving in the military, I should have been able to recognize that the mail truck that I grew up with was absolutely a military-grade piece of equipment built by the cheapest bidder. I mean, this is what I drove in the military, the Humvee ambulance, and I mean, the similarities are there. I mean, they both look like the blueprints for them were drawn by a third grader that didn't know how to draw a car yet, and then the 3D renderings were made out of fucking Legos. Now, to be fair though, while I have driven the Humvee ambulance and it's a miserable experience, I've never driven a mail truck, so I don't actually know what that's like. So I turned to the internet because surely some mailman has written something somewhere on the planet that is going to tell me what that experience is like, and here's what I found. Quote, regular driving around town was pretty bearable, but driving the LLV on the highway shouldn't even be legal. I've had to do it a few times, and those times were probably the most terrified I've been while operating any motor vehicle. Riding a motorcycle over 100 miles an hour? No problem. Merging onto the highway in a mail truck? You couldn't pay me to do it again. The sluggish acceleration, deafening noise, and harsh vibration were all bad enough, but knowing the body of the vehicle would crush like a soda can in an accident is what made it such a frightening experience. Nope, I was right, because...
See, whoever said that, whoever said, I think it was you, Rowboat, whoever said that it was like all crumple zone in that old car, probably was true, because that seems to be the case for the mail cat. I know it's not called the mail It's not called the male cat, but now that he's called it that, I'm going to only refer to it as the male cat. I've already forgotten, what was it, LLV? Yeah, or FVV, whatever it is. Yeah, why would you want to go on the highway with that thing? Yeah, but I guess, you kind of have to at some points. Or, there's always a way to get around it without the highway, but it's going to be slow. And welcome, Drago. Yeah, this is fine, just trying not to get crushed to death on the highway in a sluggish vehicle that is just a tin can with wheels. You think if it was military grade, they make it a little bit more sturdy. Although they could go in the other direction, kind of how the Tesla truck is, where it has no crumple zone, it seems. What would you prefer? Would you prefer a car that is too much crumple zone, or a car that is not at all any crumple zone? Which is better? Which is more preferable? Dying of whiplash and just getting the G-forces, or dying being crushed in a soda can with wheels? Which would you prefer?
That is to a T what it's like to drive a military ambulance. I got one of those things going 75 one time thanks to an enormous hill, and it felt like I was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere as everything that wasn't strapped down rattled out of place.
No crumple zone because you're alive to sue.
But driving a Humvee or an LLV really fast kind of seems like anal beads, The faster you go, the bumpier it gets, and if you go too fast, there's gonna be shit everywhere.
What did he just say?
What?
Brian, this does not seem appropriate to watch in front of the baby.
Now, to be fair to the Grumman male cat, is it a turd? Absolutely, but it is really tough, because here's some of the testing criteria the LLV had to be able to meet before it would be adopted as the USPS postal vehicle. We have drive 5,760 miles at 55 miles an hour with 0 malfunctions and 0 broken parts. Drive 11,520 miles at 45 miles an hour on gravel with 0 malfunctions and 0 broken parts. Drive 2,880 miles, stopping every 250 feet, accelerating to at least 15 miles an hour in between stops with 0 malfunctions and 0 broken parts. Drive 960 miles on cobblestone, 0
These
broken
are very
parts.
specific.
Drive 960 miles over potholes, ensuring that every single wheel hits the pothole at least 35,000 times with 0 broken parts. To accomplish that, they took a Chevy S10 chassis, shortened the wheelbase so it could have a tighter turn radius, and then made the entire body of the vehicle out of aluminum.
Look at
so
the
it
box
couldn't rust.
go!
So at a minimum, at least it's tough. Despite the fact that it is really tough, it is finally time to start replacing the United States Postal Service carrier vehicle because, well, the engine that they put in these things is an engine from the 1970s known as the Iron Duke, and this bad boy's getting like 9 miles to the gallon. This is the same engine they were putting in the Cavalier and the Trailer Park Ferrari back in the day. I mean, the Pontiac Fiero. Don't laugh, the Pontiac Fiero is high-class white trash, okay? The only thing cooler than that when I was growing up was the 2002 Dale Earnhardt Edition Monte Carlo. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. The main problem with the LLV is the gas mileage, okay? Because it only gets 9 miles to the gallon, you have to realize this is like the biggest fleet of vehicles that the United States has. There's over 140,000 of these things, meaning that for every single penny that gas prices go up, the U.S. Postal Service has to spend an additional $8 million on fuel alone. And this is the part where you're like, oh, America's capitalist, that's fine, that's the cost of doing business, just raise the prices of your services, and it's covered, it's no big deal. You would think that, but remember, the U.S. Postal Service is a government-regulated monopoly, meaning that anytime they want to change their pricing, the government has to sign off on it, and the government takes forever to do anything. Another example of this would be like the power company, right? Because you can't shop around for different power providers the same way you look for like an internet service provider.
Milk, thank you. Thank you for gifting a sub to Bibibian. Thank you, or Fabian. It cut off the name, but thank you for gifting a sub to Fabian. Thank you.
On it, and the government takes forever to do anything. Another example of this would be like the power company, right? Because you can't shop around for different power providers the same way you look for like an internet service provider or a cell phone provider.
Well, like I said, you can't really shop around for an internet service provider in most places because every time I have moved, I can never keep my internet provider. And then I look around and it's like, oh, who can I have? Oh, there's only one option. That's it. Like, why? But give me options. They never overlap. They're cartels, like I said.
You only have one power company available where you live, the same way you only have one post office available where you live. Anytime the power company wants to raise their rates, the government has to sign off on it, and it's a huge deal. Same thing applies to the postal service and stamps or anything else. Because of this, they can't effectively adapt and change their prices, so it's a humongous issue. So how do we solve this? Well, there's two options. You could A, get rid of the monopoly that's set in place because it's no longer effective for what it was originally supposed to do by helping the USPS, and now it's actually hindering them more than it's helping because they're no longer able to change their prices to actually be competitive. Or you could B, make them get different vehicles. And obviously, we're absolutely 100% of the time going to go with B because the US government, or any government ever really, is never ever going to give up control, and they have control over the USPS, and they're never ever going to let that go. They would rather see that thing burn to the ground than give up control over it.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, the USPS is getting new vehicles. But then that bites the US Postal Service in the ass because remember, they're a government agency, and they can't just like go to Toyota and be like, hey, Toyota, that new truck that you guys just came out with,
What the fuck? What the, whoa, is that real? Go back. Is that the Super Mario truck? What is this? I want this. I am not a big truck fan. I'm not like someone who wants to drive a truck most of the time because they're like, I feel like there's too many trucks on the road in the US nowadays. It's just an arms race of who can get the bigger truck to quote unquote protect themselves, even though it makes things way more dangerous for pedestrians and other people in other cars. But, you know, if you want a truck, you get a truck. But, like, that looks sick. Oh, my God. I love it. See, this has style. It's their new modular truck. Oh, that's so good. This looks... See, this is what I'm talking about. I want cars that have style. And it has style. But it's not like, oh, look how sleek it is. No, they went a different direction, but it works here. It works here for a truck. Although I'm looking at it again, and it kind of reminds me of the guns in Starfield, and I don't like the guns in Starfield. But I like the truck. Why is that? Why do I like the truck, but I hate the guns in Starfield? Oh, the rear bed looks way too shallow. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's modular. You know, they said it was modular, so maybe you could get a bigger truck bed. Maybe this is specifically to hold the giant Super Mario block. It looks really good, though. This is so good. I love it. But if you play Starfield and you know what the guns are, like, look up the problems. If you're not a gun person, look up the problems with the guns in Starfield, and you will be amazed at how many mistakes they made with the guns in Starfield. And why is it that in the future for guns, Bethesda went the direction of like, what if we made them blocky? Like, what if we made them brutalistic? What if we made it look like they were made of spare parts and had valves and everything? Like, I would think a future gun would be sleeker and actually follow the ergonomics of the human form, you know, so you can hold it.
With that's $10,000 and really cool. Can we buy a bunch of those for fleet vehicles? No, they can't do that. They have to figure out the specs they want, then they have to send that out and let all these defense contractors bid on them, and then after they bid, they have to give the defense contractors millions of dollars so that they can develop the new vehicle, so they're going to pay for all the R&D up front, and then when Oshkosh Defense wins the bid with this fucking thing that looks like it was animated...
What the fuck? It looks like it had a bigger nose at the top, but then someone took a mallet and squished it. And now it's got like, this is real? I don't want to see this. This is, go back to the old one. I like the other one. I take back every bad thing I said about the old car's design. This looks worse. And it's still just plain white with a little bit of blue and red. Ugh. Like, I feel like this one would have a lisp if it could talk. I don't know what about this. It looks like it has like a huge underbite too. I'm personifying this truck. And if this truck could speak in a Cars movie, it would have a huge underbite, it would have a lisp, and it would have a weird country accent, but you can't quite pinpoint where and what part of the United States, of the south of the United States, that country accent is from because it's made up. I hate it. I hate it. Oh, also it wheezes. If this is ever in the Cars movie, there you go. Disney, you can now use my description of what this would sound like in your movie. You can use it for free. I won't judge. I won't sue. I won't do it. I won't do it. That truck is an abomination. I agree. The lady with her smile right there, she's smiling through the pain. She doesn't want to be in that truck. Also, oh my God, that's a really big window. Wow, that is a really big window. Oh my goodness. Ew.
By Pixar, the other company that they beat is going to turn around and file a lawsuit and sue because they're saying that it wasn't a fair enough competition, despite the fact that the US taxpayers literally gave them all the money for R&D in the first place. And then that's going to delay the whole project more, and then bottom line, it's going to take 20 fucking years to fix the issue the entire time the US Postal Service is struggling and trying to figure shit out while the government refuses to let them actually do their job and be fucking competitive. And it just sucks because the US Postal Service is sacred. There's nothing more sacred to society than the mailman. All I wanted to do was have a happy, lighthearted video because I thought it was funny that Northrop Grumman was making mail trucks, and now, after researching it, I'm gonna get upset every time I watch my mail lady deliver the mail because I'm gonna recognize that she's wearing a parka and overalls inside of her vehicle because the heater barely works, because she's driving a 40-year-old mail truck that's a piece of shit, because the government fucks up everything they even get near touching. So in conclusion, I guess that's the story of why mail trucks are made by defense contractors, and if you're a mail carrier, I've always appreciated you, but I'm gonna be honest, I have another level of appreciation for what you do, because I truly, genuinely had no idea the levels of bureaucratic bullshit that you had to hurdle on your way to get mail into my mailbox, so thank you. Seriously, thank you. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over
Go
at
get his merch.
FatElectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
That was a good video. I did not see any of that coming. I knew nothing about the trucks other than I did kind of like hate how they looked. And I did know that they didn't have like any AC or anything like that. But yeah, thank your mail person. Next time you see your mail person, just say thank you. Say thank you. Maybe I don't know if they can accept tips. Give them a tip. Give them a $1 bill. Okay, maybe don't do that. Okay, that probably would seem condescending. Never mind. Don't do that. If someone handed me money because I was just doing my job like that, I feel like they were like looking down on me. Never mind. Don't do that. That's probably a bad idea. But definitely thank them for it. You know, they work hard. They work very hard. You know, they deserve it. They deserve it. So, but I enjoyed this video. And if, you know, over in the YouTube lands, if you have any other recommendations on particular videos from the Fat Electrician or from other genres, maybe even more Warhammer 40K or other genres, let me know in the comments down below, and consider coming by the stream live so you can watch with us, or maybe even join the Discord. We're happy to have you. But without further ado, I would like to say thank you for watching. Bye-bye.